have read a lot of book ones in the science fiction and fantasy realm, you guys. A lot at this point. I've been reading it pretty much my whole life, but especially for the last 4 or 5 years, I have been entrenched in the fantasy and sci-fi genre, and that is amazing, and I'm so happy to be here. But tonight, I am going to be going through and creating a tier list of every single book one of a series I have ever read in science fiction and fantasy. I'm sure I missed a couple, but I got pretty much everything on here, I think. Some of these are by the same author, some of these are absolute favorites of all time of mine, and some of them really didn't go well. So let's introduce the tier list. The top tier is, of course, the I'd sell my kidney to read it again category. These are books that I wish I could go back and have that feeling of reading a new favorite again for the first time, because as you guys know, there is nothing better than that when you are starting a new series and you just know, you just feel it in your soul that this is going to be a new favorite. The second one is, of course, we have some banger openings. These are books that really did a great job hooking me from the beginning, were an amazing first installment in the series. Our middle tier is Solid Start. It was good. After that, it's okay, it was a little weak, or I didn't feel particularly hooked by it. This is just my subjective opinion, and I'm looking at each of these books. Some of them I only read the first book in the series, many of them I continued, but I'm gonna just be looking at the individual book as the first book in the series. I'm not judging the series as a whole, I'm looking only at book 1. Okay, so we're gonna get started with a indie published fantasy that is very, very popular in the self-pub sphere, and that is Voice of War, first in the Threadlight series. Voice of War, I actually really enjoyed. This definitely has strong Sanderson vibes, so if you are a Sanderson fan and you're looking for something to scratch that itch before or after Wind of Truth comes out, check out the Threadlight series by Zach Argyle. Voice of War, I actually really enjoyed a lot of the themes in this story. I thought he delved into some fantasy character moments that I don't see in the genre that much, which I appreciated. I would give it a solid start. I feel like that one did make me interested in continuing to read the series. I liked what he did with some of his character work in there, so I'll put it in solid start. One of my favorite reads this year so far has been Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This is such a classic example of a book that takes a young coming-of-age protagonist and still manages to deliver a very solid adult fantasy novel. I think I'm going to put that one. That one is a banger opening for sure. That one, I love that book. It made me really excited to continue with Anthony Ryan's other series, and it just clicked so many of those checkboxes for me as to what I enjoy most about reading fantasy books. So let's do A Touch of Light by Chago Abdallah. This one is the first book in the Ashes of Avrin series, which I believe has 2 books and a novella out right now. Book 3 is in the works. This one was a finalist also in the self-published fantasy blog off number 8, I believe. Heavy on the political intrigue. There's a lot of very intricate, complex political stuff going on in this book. It's an exploration of religion. 3 main POVs. For me, I think it's a really ambitious first book in a series, and it does a lot of work in one book. It is a lot. It is a lot for the first book. So I'm going to put it in a solid start, and I do think I enjoyed Touch of Wet Light more than I enjoyed Voice of War. But yeah, there's a lot. If you like really deep layered first books, that is one for you. Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. This is a superhero space opera, which I had no idea when I read this book what I was going to think of it, and I ended up absolutely loving Rohan as a character. I absolutely love the sentient spaceships and space stations. It's just a really solid book, and I think it's a banger opening, honestly. I think more people should read this book. I think it's one of the best indies I've read. Absolutely loved it. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This one I read quite a long time ago, and it is a little tricky to remember exactly how I felt about it in the moment. But I did really, really like it, and it made me want to continue. It left me with a very strong nostalgia for the characters. I really enjoyed the emotional investment I had with those characters. So I'm trying to, I would say it's either the beginning of a solid start or banger opening. I think I'm going to go top of solid start because I think it took some time for me to build that rapport with the characters throughout the trilogy, but I did really enjoy book one. Okay, let's do Through Wolf's Eyes by Jane Lindskold. I read this so long ago, you guys. I don't know how many of you even know about this book, honestly. It's a fantasy about a girl who's raised by wolves who's then brought into the court scene, and obviously she's a fish out of water. She has no idea how to behave in quote-unquote polite society. I really enjoyed this when I read it. I would like to reread this one and go back and see what I think of it and maybe continue the series, because I only ever read book one and it was a long time ago. But I think I'm going to put that in solid start because I really enjoyed that, and I'd be curious to know on a reread how I feel about it. But yeah, it was good. Back to science fiction, we've got Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I really enjoyed Ender's Game, but I am in the camp of I actually enjoyed Ender's Shadow more. That one, I absolutely freaking love Ender's Shadow. Ender's Game is good, and I enjoyed the characters. I love a young coming-of-age Motley Crue style story a lot. So obviously in that way it checks a lot of boxes for me. I liked Ender's Shadow was a bit more scrappy, I think, than Ender's Game, which is probably why I liked it more. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read Ender's Game. I should probably reread it at some point. I'm gonna go solid. Yeah, because like if Ender's Shadow had been the first book, I think it would easily be in banger opening at the top of the list. But I think I really enjoyed Ender's Game. I really enjoy the story. But I think I'm gonna put it in solid start. Yeah. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Hunger Games I read right when I saw that the movie was coming out. Blew through the 3 books in, like a few days. I read 1, went back to the bookstore, bought book 2, went back to the bookstore, bought book 3, and just burned through them when we were in college. Went to see the movie a couple of times. I really still enjoy Hunger Games. I enjoy the premise. I think it's a really well-written YA series, an actual YA series. Yeah, I still really enjoy the Hunger Games. I'm trying to decide this is such a subjective thing, you guys, trying to do these tier ranking lists. I think I'm going to put it here because I really did enjoy it. The second book I actually like more than the first one. That one's my favorite, Catching Fire. But I think Hunger Games is a really good opener to the series. The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This one, I know First Law is much beloved by a lot of fantasy people, and I love you all so much for that. This series is tough for me. It is a solid start. I didn't love the first book. But where do I put it? That's the thing. I think, I don't know. Did I like it more than Assassin's Apprentice? I don't know. I honestly, we'll put it there for now and I can always move it. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it in. It's a solid start. I have more of a problem with Joe Abercrombie's endings than his beginnings. So yeah, I think that one's a solid start. Half a King Speaking of Joe Abercrombie, here's another Joe Abercrombie that I actually liked the opening of this trilogy way more than I enjoyed the opening of First Law. I'm going to put that one in banger opening because I loved that book. I loved Half a King. I thought it was amazing. It was such a good beginning. Really tense, really good character building. Not going to talk about the ending of that trilogy either because I really didn't like it. But really enjoyed the first book a lot. I think it's a really excellent opener. So we're going to put that one in banger opening. Wickwire Watch by Jacqueline Hagan. This was a finalist in last year's self-published fantasy blog off and one of my favorite indie series running right now. I'm just about to read book 4. I love this series so much. The wholesomeness of the characters, the motley crew, the way she genre blends epic fantasy with like gas lamp Dickensian vibes is just phenomenal. I love it so much. Yeah, that one's going in banger opening. I think, oh man. I don't know where to put this. I'm going to put it in banger opening right there. Can always move these. These are approximate, guys. Like tomorrow I might have a completely different setup. I don't know, but it's close. It's close. Guards by Terry Pratchett. So Terry Pratchett is very quickly becoming one of my new favorite authors. I love the City Watch series in his Discworld so much, and I'm now on book 4. Guards. I really enjoyed the characters, but I wouldn't say that I wasn't like Terry Pratchett is my new favorite author just from book 1. It took me until book 2 to really say, yep, this is I love this series. But it's an incredibly solid start. I'm going to put it at the top of solid start. I really enjoyed Guards. It was a 4-star read for me. The humor, the characters, so good. I do want to reread it now that I've gotten a little farther in the series because I think that would be interesting to reread now that I know the characters and see how I feel about it. You know what? I'm going to put that up here. I like Guards. Malice by John Gwynne, which begins his Faithful and the Fallen Celtic-inspired fantasy series. This series is such an interesting blend of classic and modern to me, and I think he walks that tightrope between them really well. His combat scenes, especially his group combat scenes, are some of the best I've ever read in fantasy. He's incredible at those. The thing with Malice, though, is that there are so many POVs in this book. There's so many that it definitely took me a little bit to get into it. I don't know. I think that one's going in solid start. But where? Here. Put it there? Yeah, we'll put it there. All right. We're going to go back in time and do Redwall by Brian Jakes. I have read all but like 3 or 4 of the Redwall books. I absolutely devoured them when I was a kid. I loved Redwall so much. The first book is obviously an incredible classic. And Brian Jakes has this superpower where he is able to take essentially the same plot line, write it in 20 plus different books, and have it be absolutely incredibly engaging and amazing every single time. And that is a superpower skill. I love it. He's so good. He's so good in the world he created. Redwall is not one of my favorites, but it is a very solid start, and it's such an incredibly powerful series, and the characters and world that he made are just phenomenal. I have no idea where to put this, and I'm procrastinating. Let's do... I don't know where to put this, you guys. Redwall. Yeah, I think, yeah. Redwall over Hunger Games? I don't know. Sure, we'll just go with that. All right. V.E. Schwab, This Savage Song. This is actually one of my favorite YA novels, and again, actual YA, none of this adult spice pretending to be YA stuff. The Savage Song is really good. I loved that book, and it's a really good duology. I think it's super, super solid YA. It's actually my favorite V.E. Schwab book. And I wasn't as big of a fan of some of her other ones. So I'd put that in banger opening. I really liked The Savage Song. I thought the premise was really interesting. Some of the stuff that she did with the magic and the monsters was really cool. So yeah, let's do that. The Lies of Locke Lamora, you guys. Oh man, this is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. It's one of my favorite books of all times, and I would absolutely sell my kidney to read it again for the first time. I'm going to be rereading it hopefully soon. Yeah, I just love that book so much. The world building, like, people talk about the characters all the time, but I honestly don't think Scott Lynch gets enough credit for the world building and his dialogue, and he's just an incredibly gifted writer. And I'm really looking forward to rereading the book, and that's about as close as I'm going to get to reading it again for the first time. But Lies of Locke Lamora is absolutely incredible, you guys. Gardens of the Moon by Steve Erickson. So Malazan is one of my favorite series. I absolutely love it. I have not finished it yet. Gardens, I've read twice, and I had those two reads 10 years apart from each other, and that makes it very difficult to rank this because the first time I read it, I was really confused. I had no idea what was going on. This was also like the third epic fantasy book I had ever read, and I had never read anything this complex. And so that makes sense. That completely checks out that, 21-year-old or 20-year-old Tori was confused the heck about what was going on in this story. Rereading it last year, 10 years later, I really enjoyed it. And I actually think a lot of people see it as kind of a weak opening to the series. I agree that it's not as strong as the books that come after it, but I do think there's a lot of really good stuff in this first book. I don't know, would I go so far as to say it's a banger opening? Yeah, I mean, if I have yeah. I think I have to put it up in banger opening because it is really, really. There's some great moments in Gardens of the Moon. So yeah, I think I'm going to put it up there, which I would not have a couple of years ago. I would have rated it lower, I think. Moving on to C.S. Lewis, his I can't remember what the series is called, but it starts with Out of the Silent Planet. It's very C.S. Lewis, you guys. Like, the atmosphere, the vibes feels very Narnia-esque, but in space and on this alien planet. And it's very introspective and explores, humanity and all of the things that C.S. Lewis is really good at. I liked it. I haven't continued the series since then. It was a little on the abstract side for me, which is probably why I didn't continue. I don't know. I'm going to put this here, I think. Out of the Silent Planet. Yeah. It's a very short book, so if you're curious about the series, definitely give it a shot, because it's a pretty short series. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Mistborn was the first adult epic fantasy I ever read, and so it has a lot of nostalgia vibes for me for that. I know this was a gateway book for a ton of us that have gotten into the fantasy genre. It's good. It's just such a solid, good book, and I really enjoyed the first book, especially of the three. I liked the whole trilogy, but I really enjoyed book one. So I do think that is a banger opening. I think we're going to put that up behind Gardens of the Moon, because I think it's a phenomenal gateway for a lot of people that are looking to get into epic fantasy. I think that it's a really solid story. Love the premise, love the world building. The characters are great. Yeah, it's a banger opening. Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. This is a booktube darling recently and has just kind of taken over the internet recently, which is very cool. My husband read these and loved them. I have read 2 of the series. I'm really torn on this one because I love the character work. I love the premise of the story. I think that Matt Dinniman is an excellent writer. Jeff Hayes is a phenomenal audiobook narrator, so if you're looking for a good audiobook, please experience this series on audio. It does utilize some gratuitous sexual humor that really was not my favorite, and I think takes away from the rest of the humor and the story as a whole. It is a really good book. It's like, objectively, I really enjoy this book. Subjectively, I'm going to put it in solid start. Do I want to put it there? I feel like that's not where I want to put it. Yeah? I don't know. We'll leave it there for now. I'm not sure, honestly. That one's really hard because I feel like my subjective frustration with some of the humor really changes where I put this on this list in general. So we're just going to put it there for now. Next up, I'm going to fix my hair really quickly. It's driving me nuts. Next up is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This is such a classic. I grew up watching the BBC Narnia live-action series, and that was one of my main gateways into fantasy, honestly. It's a solid start. Edmund is my forever favorite character from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Narnia Chronicles in general. It's definitely better than Out of the Silent Planet, for sure. Yeah. It's such an apples to oranges thing to your ranking. I have no idea where to put this. I do think I enjoy it. There? Yeah. Yeah, we'll put it there. Is it a banger opening? We'll put it there for now. Cinda Williams Shima's Flamecaster. I cannot remember the name of the series. I enjoyed this book. I remember really liking it. I remember binging through the first couple books in the series, and I actually really liked a lot of what she did with it. So I'm going to put it in solid start because it's been a while since I read it, but I remember really enjoying the first book. Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, this book, you guys, I love this first book. I think it's phenomenal. It's, again, a really solid YA book. I fell off a little bit later on in the series, which isn't necessarily going to affect how I'm tier ranking it here, because that wasn't the point of this. But this first book, loved. Absolutely loved Skyward. I thought it was phenomenal. I'm going to put it up here in banger opening, because it's really good. I really like it a lot. Red Rising. As you guys know, this is my favorite series of all time, the original trilogy, and so Red Rising, I would put Lies of Locke Lamora above Red Rising for sure in terms of just how good of a book it is, but they're both up there. I would absolutely love to be able to experience Red Rising again for the first time. Ugh, that would be amazing. I love it so much. I've read that first book probably 7 or 8 times at this point. Love it. Absolutely love it. But yeah, just in terms of a first book, I know it gets a lot of hate. If you want to check out my recent video about why it is not YA, please go check that out, because it's not. But yeah, I love that book. I love it so much. And now I want to read it again just by looking at the cover. So that's always a good sign. Conversely, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I read the first 3 books. Court of Thorns and Roses was recommended to me by a friend of mine who, it was her favorite series, and she was like, you gotta read this, you gotta try this. And it was one of those series that I kept reading because I was so convinced that it couldn't be that bad all the way through. And it was. I really didn't like it. I have such a huge problem with this series. This is cast it into the fire for me, which I know is not going to surprise anybody. I really do not like this series. I really do not like so many aspects of this series. But that first one, so many problems. I have so many problems with it. I just, ugh. Anyways, moving on. The Swords and Deviltry by Fritz Leiber. This is a classic fantasy story. Supposedly one of the original great bromances of fantasy. I really didn't love this book at all. I really had a hard time with it. The writing style wasn't my favorite. The characters, in my opinion, were very flat and unrealistic, and just, I was not a fan. I was not a fan of this. I think I would even say I would rather read A Court of Thorns and Roses again before I would rather read Swords and Deviltry again. I think I'm just gonna go on. I can already hear the comments on that. I'm so sorry. But yeah, nope. That was not a favorite read for me. Poison Study by Maria Snyder. This was a book club pick from like 4 or 5 years ago with a group of friends of mine. This book, man, oh goodness sakes. It was interesting. It's a young woman who basically is given an ultimatum where she is going to be executed, or she can become a food taster for a royal member of the family. So she obviously chooses to do that, and etc., etc. I wasn't a fan of this one either. I don't even remember enough of it. I think I would probably put it ahead of Court of Thorns and Roses. I don't know. When you kind of get down to the Cast It into the Fire category, it's sort of just wherever you feel like putting it that day. But yeah, that one wasn't really my favorite either. And nope, I wouldn't read it again. Across the Nightingale Floor, Tales of the Otori, and I'm trying to remember, Leon Hearn, I think, is the author. This one was a disappointment for me because I went into it really excited to get some, obviously, Asian flavored inspired / fantasy is one of my favorite categories of fantasy, and so I was really excited to read this. The insta-lust, look across, catch each other by the eyes romance came out of nowhere and really took away from the rest of the story for me. It was okay. It was just okay. I don't know. It was okay. It was fine. Okay. Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I don't know where to put this. I'm just going to be real with you guys right now. I have no idea where to put this book because I subjectively really did not like this book. I really had a hard time with it. I did not like how torture and misery it was all the way through. And I can recognize that Robin Hobb is an amazing writer. But oof, this book. It's okay because she does have some amazing characters in the book that I really did enjoy, and the world building premise is amazing. But that's a very close line for me between It's Okay and Cast It into the Fire because, yeah, but it's Robin Hobb writing, so it's very beautifully written. I just surprised myself, honestly, how much I disliked that book. Legend by David Gemmell. This is another kind of classic fantasy, veteran warrior's final stand story, which I really loved. Binged through it last year. This was a good book. I really liked this one. I don't know if I'd put it ahead of Ender's Game. This is so subjective, you guys. I don't know. Yeah, let's put it in solid start. I really, really liked it. I don't know. Is it a banger opening? It might be. I think it might be, actually. I think we're going to put it up here. Yeah, we're going to put it up there. Okay, next is Susan Dennard's Truth Witch. This was another series that was recommended to me by a friend, and I did end up pretty much binging the first 3 books in it. It was good. I don't remember a lot about it, to be perfectly honest. It was okay. I think that's kind of where I have to put it. It was okay. I don't know that I'd read it again, but it would be an interesting reread to see how I feel about it a few years later, if I like it more. I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll put that in the It's Okay category. V.E. Schwab again. We've got Darker Shade of Magic. I did not love this book, you guys. I know this is a series a lot of people really like. It kind of reminded me of a combination of Neil Gaiman and Aaron Morgenstern, who wrote Starless Sea and The Night Circus. If you put those two kind of storytelling styles together, I feel like you get something close to V.E. Schwab. It's okay. I didn't love it. It was okay. I didn't really feel connected to the characters. Wasn't a big fan. NPCs by Drew Hayes. This is, as you might imagine, a kind of tongue-in-cheek story about some NPCs in a video game world. And I love that premise. I absolutely love the premise. I didn't love the story. I loved the premise. I didn't love the way it was written. So I'm going to put that in the it's okay category. Anna Smith Sparks, The Court of Broken Knives, and I'm trying to remember the name of the trilogy. I cannot for the life of me remember it, so you'll have to let me know down in the comments. This is one that I think, honestly, just didn't work for me. I think that the writing style just did not gel with me very well for whatever reason. And I kind of bounced off of it. I didn't love this one. I think her writing style is really unique and beautiful. It just didn't land well with me personally. So I'm going to put it in the it's okay camp, I think. Yeah. Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This is one of my husband's recent favorites. He absolutely binged through this series this year and loved it. I like it. I'd say it's a solid start. I'm going to put it ish in there for solid start. I'm looking forward to book 2 because I think I'm going to enjoy it better. Book 1 was good. It was frustrating in quite a few parts. But I think it's an incredibly unique premise, and Josiah Bancroft has some absolutely stunning prose. So we'll put it there for now. Andrew D. Meredith, Thrice. Thrice is the first book in the Needle and Leaf series, which is ongoing. And it's a good, solid lone wolf and cub style story with a veteran who is the adopted father of this little boy who has way too much magic, and they're running away from people who would like to capture the boy for their own nefarious purposes. I think this one... Where would I put this one? I think I'm going to put this one in. It's a solid start. I think it's a pretty short read, so if you're looking for a short fantasy series that's kind of a palate cleanser, I would definitely say check out Needle and Leaf. And I would put that in a solid start. Got a lot of books left, you guys. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This one's going in the It's Okay category very heftily. I actually took a huge break after the first book because I was kind of bored by it, if I'm being totally honest. Highly recommend for anybody who's struggling a little bit with book 1. Try book 2 because I actually really got going on book 2. But book 1 was tough to get into, for sure. I do love Royce and Hadrian as a bromance. They're great. Peter McLean, Priest of Bones. And again, The War for the Rose Throne is the title of the series. This is a banger opening, you guys. It's really good. It really is. I don't know where I would put this. Maybe there? Yeah, it's an excellent opening book. I loved... The first book was my favorite in the series. I read all 4. Absolutely freaking loved the first book. One of the strongest first-person narrative voices that I've read, and that was really impressive. So I'm going to put that in banger opening because it was really, really good. Empress by Karen Miller. This book... This is one of the first epic fantasy series I ever read, and that first book is just torture and misery. Yeah, it's interesting. I have no idea how I would feel about it now. It's been over 10 years since I read it, but I do still remember enough of it to know that I don't know how I'd feel about rereading it if I'd want to give it the time, to be honest. So yeah, we're going to put that in It's Okay. Shadow in Summer by Daniel Abraham. This is book 1 of the Long Price Quartet, which was one of my favorite reads of last year, and we are absolutely putting that in the top S tier. I'd sell my kidney to read it again. It's amazing. I knew after that one book that this was going to be a series that I was going to count on my favorite series of all time list just from that first book. So yeah, absolutely a masterpiece story. Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. It has again been a very long time since I read this. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that Martin has really done a lot for the genre of fantasy with this series. I'll put, that's, where would I put this? I think that's in banger openings. I'm trying to even remember, like, all the things that happen in that first book and season, because there's so much that happens in that series, you guys. I think just from a complexity level, honestly, it's an impressive feat, that series. Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Assassin Nuns. That's really all that I needed to know to read this book. I was sold based on that synopsis alone. And I do think that the first book was a really solid start. I think I would put this probably there-ish, above Malice. Yeah, I think that's where I would put it. It's good. Another good coming-of-age story about a young protagonist who is absolutely in an adult epic fantasy novel, which is a hard balance to pull off, and I think that Mark Lawrence does it really well there. Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I read that ages ago. I remember enjoying it. Like, you know, as a young reader, I really enjoyed it. I'd say it's okay. I don't think enough of it has stuck with me over the years to give it a higher rating than that. But yeah, we'll put it there. Unkindness of Magicians, and I'm trying to remember the name of the author, and I can't, and it's too small to read. This one is another Casted into the Fire story. I really did not like that book. I was so bored. I really did not like the characters. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like anything about that book. So that one's a Casted into the Fire. P.L. Stewart, A Drowned Kingdom. This reads like a historical narrative. It's so detailed and it's so realistic in terms of just the world building and the way it's written. It reads like a historical chronicle. Really solid start to a series. I have no idea where to put this, you guys. I think I'm gonna put it, where am I going to put this? I don't know. This is a mess. I don't know that any of this makes any sense in this category anymore, so we're just going to go with it. We're going to put it in there. Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, another book that I absolutely loved reading this year. That one's a banger opening, you guys. That is an incredible, incredible book. Whoops, I'm going to put it right here, I think. So good. It has the most amazing fairy tale atmosphere and just beautiful prose and character writing. She handles some very heavy topics in that book incredibly well. Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I read that recently as part of my Cosmic Footsteps reads, going back and reading female authors in the genre that were published prior to the 2000s. I'm not gonna lie, I know I have a lot of Le Guin fans that are in my audience, and I'm so sorry, you guys, but I really didn't like this book very much. I was really bored with it, and I think it was more the writing style is very quest fantasy. It's very classic vibes. the main character was just so milquetoast for me. Like, I don't know. I thought some of the world building stuff was really cool, but I wasn't grabbed by it enough to want to continue the series. Yeah, I was surprised that I didn't like it more than I did. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and again, I cannot remember the author's name, I'm so sorry. This was another one that I was just kind of meh on. I was hoping I was going to enjoy this more than I actually did. I don't know where to put this either. I don't know. We'll put it in the middle of the It's Okay category. I don't know. I was pretty mid about it. I wasn't that impressed with it. And I wanted to like it more than I did. All right, Jade City by Fonda Lee. I'm going to slide this up for a minute. Jade City is excellent. I really, really love Fonda Lee's approach to writing generational stories. I think she's absolutely brilliant at it, and we're going to put that very solidly in the I would love to be able to read that again for the first time. I'm noticing that my top row is matching the green theme very well. So, except for Red Rising, which it's fine. There's a lot of green in that top row. It works. But yeah, I really like Jade City. I think it's a really good opener to the trilogy. Really good character work. Some of the best actual anti-hero character work I've seen in a series in the last few years. Really, really excellent. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is one of my favorite YA/new adult books. I really enjoyed this. If you like Lies of Locke Lamora, it has kind of a more YA, slightly like it's a less complex version of that kind of heist Motley Crue vibe story. Really, really like the character work in that. I think I'm gonna, let's see, where do I want to put that? I think I'm going to put it up in Banger Opening in the middle, because I really, really like that book. I'm looking forward to rereading it, hopefully, in the next year. And just seeing how I feel about it, because I really loved that book. We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. What an incredible opening to a series. Wow, this book. I remember just being blown away when I read this. It takes place over 8 days, you guys, and it is an epic, grimdark invasion story, and it is brutal. Oh man, is it brutal. That's a banger opening. That's got to go up at the top of Banger Opening, because that was, what a first book. Wow. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I've finally actually read. The nostalgia vibes, you guys. Like, I did not grow up reading this series, but I watched the films when I was in high school and really fell in love with a lot of the characters. This was it was a solid start. I would say, I don't know. This is so hard to judge where to put this when they are so violently different from each other. But yeah, it's a very solid start. I think it's going to be really interesting to see as I go through the series how it expands from the first book, but I do think that the first book really does a good job of building the atmosphere, showing you bits and pieces of the world, introducing you to the characters, and yeah, it really kickstarted middle grade fantasy pretty hard. And I think bridged the gap between age categories within young readers, which was very cool as it went along. So yeah, I'll put that in a solid start. Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. This is a really unique premise. I really would like to go back and reread this and start the series again, because I really liked this book. I thought it was really interesting. Put it up here, maybe. Also, those covers with the playing card covers and just the artwork is amazing. They're some of my favorite covers that I own. So I need to get back into that and see how I feel about it. Evan Winter's Rage of Dragons. This is such a cool, unique, African-inspired, vengeful fantasy book. It's very tense. It's action-packed. Some great character work, especially in the first half, I think. It's a really solid start. I'm going to put it up. I'm gonna put it up here in the front of Solid Start, because it is a really good book. I'm really looking forward to continuing with the second one, hopefully soonish. All right, Iron Prince by Bryce O'Connor. This book is one of my favorites from this year. It's in the running for Book of the Year for me. I gotta put it in, I'd tell my kid, this is such a subjective pick, you guys, but it's so well written. Like, the characters, it's one of my favorite Motley Crues I've read in a while. I could not put it down. It's a 1,000-page book, you guys, and I could not put it down. I couldn't put it down. Absolutely loved it. Would love to be able to reread it again for the first time, because it, like, physically makes me hurt that I am done with both of the books that are out and I have to wait for the third book. I don't like it. Okay, Martha Wells, All Systems Red, the Murderbot first book. I didn't love this one, you guys. I didn't love it as much as I was thinking I was going to. I read it and it was okay, but I just didn't really get the appeal, I guess. It didn't hook me enough to keep going in the series. I thought it was okay. It was just okay. Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. I think that's correct. This was another book club pick, and this is another one that, like, there were some interesting factors to it, but no. I wasn't a big fan of that one. I don't even remember enough of it to tell you exactly why, but I remember very strongly having meh opinions about it. Steel Heart by Brandon Sanderson. I read this one during my major year of Brando Sando, which was between 2020 and 2021. This one wasn't for me, you guys. This is one of my least favorite Sanderson books I've read. I just didn't think it was that exciting. I didn't like the writing style. I thought the character work was a lot weaker than it usually is in Sanderson's books. So that's going to go in the it's okay category. Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Matar. This is book one in her Tainted Dominion series. That is also a doorstopper. This is a chonk book, you guys. Very strong political fantasy, kind of Flintlock-y era. Really strong character work for the most part. And yeah, that was a pretty strong opening. I'm gonna put that up in banger opening, because that one is a really powerful series opener, in my opinion. This doesn't even fit on the page anymore. There's too many books. Okay, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Right, so we're gonna put that in here. I read that in high school and grew up in the era where all of my girlfriends were obsessed with Twilight and sparkly vampires and are you Team Edward or Team Jacob? I don't understand, you guys. I don't understand Twilight. Yeah, I don't think I need to say anything more than that. Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson was a beautifully wholesome, almost like Regency era spinster inherits a dragon egg, which hatches. And it's very light on the fantasy, but it is very strong what would actually happen if a dragon randomly showed up in a little Regency village. I really liked it. So yeah, that was a really solid opening. I think here-ish. Yeah, it's a very solid start. I'm looking forward to reading book 2. It's so cozy and wholesome, you guys. If you're looking for something like that, please check out that book because it's adorable. Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. That's a banger opening. That's got to go up here. Oop, I'm not sure where up here. Where are we going to put it? Never Die is an Asian-inspired wuxia fantasy Motley Crue. There's Japanese spirits and gods but the character arcs, phenomenal. Such a good Motley Crue. Loved this book. I think we're going to put it up here. think, oh man, where do I even put this? I love that book. I really do. I love Never Die. And I think it's a banger opening to the Mortal Techniques series. So we're going to put it up there. Daughter of the Beast by Ed Greaves, E.C. Greaves. The Vishivka trilogy, I think, is the title of the trilogy. I had to double check that. This is a very unique fantasy vibes story. It's 0 humans to be found, and almost gave me kind of a World of Warcraft vibe when I was reading it, to be honest. It's a solid start. I mean, there were things about it that I was kind of meh on, but I do think that it's a really interesting indie read, and I like that he was pushing out of the box in so many aspects with it. So we're going to put it in solid start. Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. This one is a martial arts cyberpunk sci-fantasy-ish. And actually, very, in some ways, somewhat similar to Iron Prince. There's some similar vibes to those two, and I loved Iron Prince. Combat Codes did not hook me as much in terms of the characters, but it was a good solid start, and I think objectively it's a really good series opener. So I'm going to put it there. Yeah, we'll put it there. Lord of a Shattered Land by Howard Andrew Jones. This is a classic style quest fantasy, vengeance fantasy, but very recently came out, and I really enjoyed it. It was recommended to me by Andrew's Wizardly Reads, who absolutely loved it this last year. It's good. It's a solid start. I'm going to put it here, I think. Yeah, it's a very solid start. The main character is from a shattered nation, and he's going around to try and free all of his remaining surviving people. And there's like episodes throughout the story, which were very interesting, and he kind of pulls in different genres for each episode, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, very interesting book, and definitely willing to keep going in the series. Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith. Andrew, as I've said, every time I pull up one of his books in a video, is one of the most insane world builders I have ever met. Like, he knows his world inside and out. This is a religious fantasy that really explores different types of faith or lack thereof, and it deals with darkness versus light and everything in between. There's mercenaries, there's paladins, there's monsters, creatures. There's so much packed into this series. And I think Deathless is a really solid start. I'm trying to think where I would put it. Here, maybe? Yeah, very solid start to a series. Way of Renegades by... Oh my goodness. My brain just turned off and I cannot read it. I'm going to have to look up the author's name. I feel awful. This was a kind of New World style era fantasy, and really had some good character work, and I liked what he did with that particular historical time period. Solid start, really good indie book. Put it here-ish? Yeah, put it there. Way of Adan by Philip Chase. This is very heavily inspired by Dr. Chase's love of classic fantasy and Tolkien and all of that era of storytelling, his, you know, the ancient poems, all that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to think where I would put this. It's a good book. It didn't land with me for my personal tastes as well as I was hoping that it would. But it is still definitely a solid opener to his trilogy. So I'm going to put it in solid start. I'm feeling pretty good about this list so far, you guys. I feel like it's pretty varied in terms of... Yeah, I think it's good. The Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant by Drew Hayes. I feel like Drew Hayes' humor style really leans into the ridiculous a little bit more than I typically like. It was good. It was good. I didn't love it. I liked it better than NPCs. There was some humor disjointed or disconnect for me personally. I like the idea of it. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very bingeable and silly. So yeah, but it was okay. It didn't land for me as much as I was hoping it would. Mort by Terry Pratchett. This is book 1 in the Death Cycle of the Discworld books, which I just recently read, and I really, really loved it. I love Terry Pratchett's humor. I love his character work is so good. I think this one, the plot was a little bit more disjointed and muddy than I was used to with the City Watch books. So I didn't love the plot as much as I have with his other books, but Mort is a phenomenal protagonist. I adore him. And I just had a really good time with the book. So, The Thief Who Pulled on Trouble's Braids by Michael McClung. This is the Amra Thetis book 1 in the series. I think there's like 5 or 6 of these. This was a Spiffbo winner. I think the first year that the self-published fantasy blog off ever ran, this was the winner. And it was really interesting. There's some really unique concepts in here. I can completely see why it was a big favorite that first year. I think I'm going to put it kind of in here. Oh, nope, not that high. Up. Yeah, in here. It's very dark. It's a very short, fast read. I really liked it. There's some very interesting concepts in that I enjoyed. Dragon Slayer by Duncan M. Hamilton. This is a kind of Three Musketeers, French Revolution vibes. Grizzled veteran is called back out to fight a dragon, which he doesn't know how to do, but everyone thinks he does. The dragons are really interesting in this series. I think the main character is really good. It was a really good opener. I really liked this book a lot. I'm going to put it up here, I think. Yeah, I really, really like the main character. I think that was a really good opening. Marie Lou Warcross. This is a YA book, video game world kind of story. And I actually really enjoyed the first book. It's a duology. Did not like the second book at all, but the first book I thought was really engaging and interesting, and I liked some of the character work in it. Where to put it? I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really fun read. And I was so disappointed in book 2 because I had enjoyed book 1 so much. Excuse me. So I think we're going to put it there. I'm running out of room. There's too many books. I've read too many books. Chasing Graves by Ben Galley. I don't remember the title of the trilogy for this, but it's Egyptian historical flavor. And people are selling souls as slaves, which I think is an interesting premise. The premise of this is really fascinating. The execution, I didn't love so much. I think the premise was really, really, really good. I didn't love the way that it was written, if that makes sense. We're getting down there, guys. Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. This is Dragon Rider fantasy. It kind of walks the line between YA and new adult-ish. I think that Michael does some amazing things with Dragon Rider bonds that I haven't seen in books like this before. It's really interesting. He based the magic system on blacksmithing, which I thought was really fascinating. So yeah, it's a solid start to the series for sure. I'm looking forward to finishing or getting back into that one. I think I would put that one about here-ish. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is a Nordic-inspired fantasy. It just finished. The final book just came out, so huge congratulations to John for that. The first book is a solid start. It didn't land for me as much as I was hoping it was going to, but the monsters and the vengeance story arc. I think it was a really good setup for the series. I think it is a strong opening. It just didn't land for me as much as I was hoping it was going to. So we'll kind of put it in the middle of solid start. Okay, we're getting down there. Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I really like Neal Shusterman's work. I've read some other stuff by him that I think is really interesting. And the premise of this story, again, really good YA. The idea is that people have figured out a way to live to immortality, and so the Scythes are people that basically randomly take people out to keep the population from getting out of control. And it's an interesting premise, and I liked the first book quite a bit. I think I'm gonna put that up here actually. I enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really good opener. The Assassin of Grins and Secrets by K.E. Andrews. This is dark assassin fantasy where you have a main character with a really horrific past, and she is called back and hired to be an assassin and basically pulled out of prison and given the chance to basically fight her way to freedom. Really, really good opening. I'm going to put it up here-ish. Here-ish. Yeah, here-ish. Good opening. Very good dark assassin fantasy if you're looking for that. Moving on, we have The Blood of Crows by Alex C. Pierce. I really, really loved this book. It's a kind of heist vibes, young protagonist, murder mystery fantasy, and I didn't realize until reading this book how much I needed more murder mystery in my fantasy books, because I absolutely loved it, and he surprised me so many times with this story where I did not see the next plot twist coming, and I'm always appreciative when that happens, and it's a good plot twist. So yeah, I'm gonna put that up in banger opening because I think that was a really, really good, strong indie debut. Okay, Umbral Storm by Alec Hudson. This one excuse me, is another one that I would recommend to people that enjoy Sanderson books. I think that it actually surprised me, this one, with how much I enjoyed it. I think the world building is really unique. I think it's a really good premise. It's not really a motley crew. There's a group of characters that are friends that are really good in it. So I'm going to put that one up here too, because I think that one's really, really good. And I wish I was hearing more people talk about it because I think it's excellent. Panacea by Alex Robbins. This one is a Greek-inspired fantasy. There are minotaurs, and there's a father and son character dynamic, and there's war and invasion and all of the things. This one was good. It took kind of a massive turn about halfway through the book that really I didn't love. I liked the first half immensely better than the second half. So I feel like it's kind of right on the line here between solid start and it's okay. The first half I really, really loved. N.C. Scrimger, Those Left Behind. This is a sci-fantasy kind of space opera, first contact but with a twist that I really enjoyed. I think it's a very solid start to her series, and where would I put it is the question. Here-ish? Yeah, here-ish. Really interesting twist on the first contact trope, so highly recommend that if you're looking for a sci-fi with that trope. Francesca Liliana's Isla's Reach. This is a complex, grimdark fantasy about the last dragon rider. And Francesca definitely doesn't pull any punches with this story. I did feel like it was a little muddy in some parts, and the writing style was a little tricky for me to get through in some points. I think it has some amazing potential in terms of the rest of the series and where she's going with it. So we're gonna go top of It's Okay. I loved the premise and a lot of the concepts of it. But I think the execution could have been a little stronger. The Last Ranger by J.D.L. Rossell. And if I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. It could be Rossell. I'm not sure. Rossell. I really didn't like the main character of this book, which I know that that's kind of the point, but I just... There wasn't enough of a hook there to make me enjoy the story or look forward to the next books. The world building and concepts of this is really cool. It's very much a Ranger style story. There are these kind of colossal land titan creatures that are very cool. Love a main character with a bow and arrow. I don't think that gets done enough. But I really didn't love the main character. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys, I think we got through all the books. I think, barring maybe a couple that I forgot, those are all of the first books of series that I've ever read in fantasy and sci-fi. And I would love to know what you think of the tier list. I'd love to know if any of these you would radically have put different in different tiers. Let me know. Let me know down in the comments which of the books I mentioned are some of your favorites. If there were any that didn't work for you, I would love to hear about it. I hope you guys are reading some 5-star reads. Thank you for watching. Go down in the description box below for all of my links to my Patreon, the books that I've written, and all of that kind of jazz. And if you like the content, give a like and subscribe. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see you in the next video.